Hey, this is our first episode of a mini series that we are doing for Elevate and Lead. I'm Megan Swan, a wellness coach and consultant and the founder of Megan Swan Wellness, here with my friend Barbara. Barbara, please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I am Barbara, founder and CEO of Be Bold Group, and do leadership work with female founders in startup to growth phase.
Beautiful. We're going to riff first off on Before You Quit, Hear Us Out. So set us off, Barbara. Where should we start on this idea?
This is like really just a prompt that we want to go into and dive into, because I think that so many women that are in our network and in our circle, immediately when you hear that somebody is burnt out, they immediately want to quit, right? Or they know that this is coming, they know that this is surfacing for them. And when Megan and I were talking more about this, we were also prompting ourselves to think about what feelings are behind it when we're thinking about leadership and wellness. What thoughts, feelings come up when you want to quit or when you want to leave an organization? And I think that a lot of the immediate feelings, or the most common feelings that surface, is that it's the company culture, or that it's somebody else. We're constantly, not that it's not them, but that this is constantly surfacing, right? It's the company, it's the leadership team, it's this, it's that, it's them. And I think that really when we dig into it, yes, there could be problematic organizations, there could be things that the organization needs to work on, but we always like to talk about things that are within our control. So instead of just looking at, okay, this is a problem within the organization, they're burning me out, I'm leaving. As a woman in leadership or in a corporate space, we're constantly trying to prove ourselves when people are not asking us to. And that in itself will burn you out. Yeah. And, Megan and I have chatted about this multiple times, of just what that does to your, yourself as a person, but your emotional wellness, how it takes a toll on your mental health. Yeah.
Well, I mean, also just to preface that we've created this program, Elevate and Lead, around the intersection of leadership and wellness. And everything that you're saying is so true. I saw a brilliant post the other day that was talking about the fact that as much as an organization wants to have these sort of Band-Aid solution wellness programs like yoga once a week, let's say, not to say there's anything wrong with yoga, big fan, but at the end of the day, if the organization is not making you feel seen, heard, valued, or that they really support your growth, then it's a very Band-Aid solution to be giving you an opportunity to do these, wellness wash solutions, when in fact, we really want to empower people from the inside out, bring back this sense of agency, as you were saying, what as an individual can I control, and how can I show up in a way that's also giving other people permission to not perform in that way, to not constantly be showing up in a way that we feel isn't authentic is a very overused word, but you're trying to be someone that you're not at the end of the day. And especially in the realm of leadership, there are different ways to be an excellent leader. Mm-hmm. And when you're trying to show up in a way that's your perception of what leadership is, a Hollywood version of it, if you will, that's going to get really exhausting really quickly. And it's this lack of recognition and lack of just being who you truly are that at the end of the day really impacts your steamrolling ahead to any sort of burnout, where if you can ultimately positively impact the culture of the organization to allow people to show up more how they are and who they are, and in alignment with their values, and still, perform and feel like they're being productive and in the capacity that the organization wants on some level, but at the same time, they're just being this permission granted to be, that no one has to be acting at work, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And I'm, realizing we're on audio, but I'm over here nodding the entire time. So for anyone listening, I'm just over here like, yes, yes. And I think this idea of performing, and Meg, you can, we've chatted about this a number of times, but what does it mean when, if I'm in a context and I feel like I'm constantly having to show up as a person that is not somebody that I am? I maybe don't realize that yet, but I'm showing up to this space. It's one, performative in a sense, but also two, maybe I don't realize that that's happening. I'm showing up as this person. I go home, I'm a different person. I'm constantly feeling like I have to prove myself. I'm constantly showing up and like on this hamster wheel of just going. What does that do to just my wellness as a person, as an individual? I'm not even going into as somebody that is a part of an organization or a leader. Like, what does that do to you as a person to constantly have to do that?
Well, we know like scientifically, the number one thing that puts you in a higher risk category to all chronic lifestyle diseases, anything to do with obesity, diabetes, heart disease, all these things that are dramatically impacted by lifestyle. The number one thing is that you have this constant sensation that you're not enough, that whatever you're doing, however you're showing up, it's not enough. Yes. That low level stress as a constant in your life is puts you in this really high, increases your risk to all those things independent of everything else you're doing in your life. Right. So, and I think to your point, like leaders, maybe we're showing up and acting out what we think leadership is in a visual sense. Right. But then it's also like what's going on internally, that individual is just constantly doubting themselves, constantly feeling like, oh, I need to be even, let's say, more harsh with this team member, when in fact, like there could be a really kind way to inform change, and they just haven't been given permission to embrace their kindness as their source of leadership.
And I like that you named it as, and remind me, it was like a low level stress or low level, where it's just like constantly there, where that person, or, I've definitely been there. We don't think you're looking at your life, you're like, okay, it's not that bad. Like I have all these things, I'm having success in this sense, but you're not really addressing this underlying stressor of constantly having to show up as somebody that is not who you are, constantly having to prove yourself, constantly having to think about what others are thinking about you. That you show up and you do that every single day, that stressor, I think that because it is this like low level underlying stressor, people don't address it. And then you're like in a job for 5, 7, 10 years. And then people are starting to realize that, oh, maybe that was a problem. Maybe I shouldn't have been doing that. And it really doesn't have to take that long. And I think that that's what we're trying to address in the program that we're partnering on, that we've created and that we've like so beautifully built, is that we want you to continue to be this ambitious woman that does all of the things that you dream of and you want to, but also you should feel good about it. You shouldn't have to show up and feel like you are consumed by the thoughts and opinions of others, or you're constantly having to engage in hustle culture and work harder than the person next to you. Cause that's definitely real. But if we're not taking care of ourselves first, then there's nobody left to do that work. You completely tap out.
Yeah. So it's multiple fold, but it's at least twofold, where of course you need to ideally be taking care of yourself in a physical, emotional level, mental as well, in terms of, eating food and fuel that's nourishing, sleeping as best you can, moving your body, like all of these sort of fundamentals, in order to give yourself the best opportunity to show up consistently with energy, with motivation, really sourcing your passion for what you're doing from an authentic place and not this should energy. And then also what we're really hoping in this program is to give women specifically the permission to embody the type of leader that they are. So it doesn't have to be the stereotypical leader, in that it doesn't have to bring harsh energy. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be, in your face. There's so many ways to positively influence, inspire, motivate a team. And when women give themselves this permission, and ultimately we greater inform like the building of these cultures within given companies, as more and more women come into places of leadership, it will allow everybody to show up in a way that they feel more in alignment with. I think in a corporate setting, I mean, really in any setting, on some level, we're always all acting a little bit. We're always like trying to show up in some perceived narrative that we've glommed onto. And sometimes, let's face it, like sometimes the narrative can be helpful, because once you learn that you control the narrative, it's like the same story you keep telling yourself. It can be this, really stressful or victim mentality story that you're telling yourself, or you can shift into this narrative of constantly reminding yourself, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm showing up constantly. I'm here for the right reasons. I really care about these people, and reminding like that inner dialogue becomes so much more informative and grounding, that in the long term, you feel like you're enough. And that's so important, like not just for your personal experience in life, but for your health and longevity as a leader.
Yeah. And I think some of the things that you were saying, like I would see that, like drink your water and get your morning routine in and get your workouts. And I was like, I think two parts of that. One is I was the person that was waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym and doing all these things. And I still, whenever I look back at that time, I still don't think that I was taking care of my wellness at that point. Like, I don't think that I was prioritizing wellness. I think that I was doing things that I thought I had to do, but I was still on this hamster wheel, versus actually, now my morning starts with like, I have it on my calendar to journal and meditate and do breath work in the morning. And starting my morning like that starts a lot differently, because I'm just focused on that. If you're doing, your workout at 5, 6 in the morning, but you're still thinking about all the things that you have to do, and you're stressing about what happened yesterday, and you're thinking about a meeting that you have, like, it's still not helpful. So I think the power in that is also having control over, okay, this is time for me to start my day and, be present in my life and my body and my time. And I think all of those things are so powerful, and learning how to do that, so that it is for you and not because you feel like you have to do it, is so powerful. But I think that, in the last part, you were talking about how we show up and how we think about ourselves. And, we're going to definitely chat more about that in the next one, which is, surprise, surprise, talking about how we spend way too much time reading the room and way too much time in our heads. And I think that that's something that women definitely do more than men. But if this is resonating with you, if you are a woman in corporate and you want to step into that next level of growth, and you want to not just continue on this route of growth in your career, in your life, but you want to feel good about it, you want to feel empowered, you want to feel confident, join the Elevate and Lead micro experience program that we have launched. We have a wait list going right now. You can join the wait list and then get all of the updates. And spoiler alert, we have some self-paced like learning even before we get started. We have some tools that we're sharing, some podcast playlists, all the good things. So join the wait list. We'll add that to the show notes. And then we'll go from there.
Beautiful. See you in the next one.